I was sitting in a coffee shop this morning, just listening to the hum of conversation around me, orders being shouted, people chatting, and it hit me.
Hmm.
We spend our entire lives doing this every single day. We push air out of our lungs, we wiggle some cartilage in our throats, we flop our tongues around, and somehow that transmits a complex idea from my brain directly into yours.
It is arguably the most complex motor activity humans perform.
Yeah.
And we do it, well, completely without thinking. We don't consciously calculate where our tongue needs to touch the roof of our mouth to make a T sound.
Right.
We just think time, and the body does the rest.
And here's the thing that really struck me while reading through this stack of research on the history of phonetics. Speech is invisible. It's fundamentally fleeting. You say a word and poof, it's gone. It just evaporates the microsecond you produce it.
That has been the fundamental headache for linguistics for like 2,000 years. How do you catch a ghost? You can't put a spoken sentence under a microscope like a bacteria sample.
You can't hold it.
You can't hold it in your hand to study its weight or texture. Once it's said, it's history.
Which brings us to the mission of this deep dive. We aren't just talking about grammar or vocabulary today. We're looking at the toolkit humanity invented to capture that ghost. We're going to trace the evolution from the Victorian era, where guys were literally trying to write down sound with a pen all the way to modern digital forensics, where we can, identify a criminal by the mathematical fingerprint of their voice.
It's really a story about the shift from subjective listening, where you just had to trust my description of a sound to objective measurement. We're going to look at the code we use to write it, the software we use to see it, and the sensors we use to feel it inside the human body.
Okay, so let's start with the code. The International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA. Now, I think most people probably seen this chart, maybe on Wikipedia or in the front of a dictionary.
Sure.
It looks like the periodic table of elements, but for, I don't know, mouth noises?
That's actually a perfect analogy. Just as the periodic table lists every element that makes up the physical universe, the IPA lists every single distinctive sound or phone that human beings are capable of producing to create meaning.
And the golden rule here, according to the reading, is one sound, one symbol. Which seems obvious, but boy, English is terrible at this.
Oh, English is notoriously chaotic. Just think about the letter A. You have the A in cat, the A in father, and the A in about.
Right, 3 different sounds.
To a linguist, those are 3 completely different vowels. But our spelling system uses one symbol for all of them. The IPA, it just strips away that chaotic history and gives you a precise coordinate for the sound itself.
It feels very scientific, almost sterile. But looking at the history here, it didn't start in a lab with guys in white coats, did it?
No, and this is what people often miss. It started with teachers. Back in the late 19th century, we're talking 1886, in Paris language, teachers were just frustrated. They wanted a way to teach French students to pronounce English or English students to pronounce German without relying on these, bad approximations.
So it was a pedagogical tool first. It was about helping people communicate.
Exactly. I mean, figures like Alexander J. Ellis and Sir Isaac Pitman back in 1847 were already laying the groundwork, trying to reform spelling. But the International Phonetic Association really solidified it. The promise was, if you know the code, you can pronounce any word in any language, even if you've never heard it spoken.
It's like sheet music for speech.
It's exactly sheet music for speech.
Let's look at the chart itself, because it's not just a random list of symbols. The layout is actually an instruction manual for your face.
It's an anatomical map. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at the consonants, the chart is laid out from left to right, matching the human mouth from front to back.
So the symbols on the far left.
Those are bilabials, sounds made with both lips, like P and B.
And as you scroll right on the chart,
You're effectively moving back into the head. You hit the teeth for T and D, you hit the hard palate, and eventually you get to the far right, which represents the glottis, the throat, where you get sounds like eights.
it's in the vertical axis. That's the manner of articulation.
Correct. That tells you how the air is escaping. Is it a total blockage, like a stop consonant where the pressure builds up?
Okay.
Or is it a turbulent hiss, like a fricative?
It's incredibly logical once you see it, but the part of the source material that really surprised me, and I had no idea this existed, was the XDPA, the extended IPA.
Most people don't know about this. The standard IPA chart covers all the sounds used in normal human languages. But, I mean, what happens when things go wrong?
This is for disordered speech, right?
Right, pathological speech. Speech therapists needed a way to transcribe sounds that technically shouldn't exist in language, but are being produced by patients because of a cleft palate or a neurological condition or a lisp.
The examples were just wild. There's a specific symbol for gnashing teeth. There's a symbol for reiterated articulation, which is the technical term for stuttering.
My favorite, well, favorite is the wrong word, but the most clinically fascinating is the symbol for silent articulation.
That's just mouthing the word.
Essentially. But in a clinical setting, that distinction is vital. If a stroke victim is moving their tongue to the right position for a K sound, but no air is coming out, that is a huge diagnostic clue. It tells us the motor planning is intact, but the execution is failing. The standard IPA just ignores silence. The Exit IPA gives us a way to document that the intent and the movement were there.
Seems like a robust system, but you raise a point in the notes about the IPA being, well, a bit stuck in the past.
Conservative is the polite term. Stagnant might be the critical one. The IPA chart changes at a glacial pace. The 2005 version looks almost identical to the 1926 version.
Is that because we've discovered all the sounds? Are we done?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But the International Phonetic Association works like a democracy. To get a new symbol added, you have to lobby, you present evidence, and then you hold a vote.
It's political.
It's bureaucracy. For example, there's a sound called the labiodental flap. It's found in several African languages. It's a very distinct sound involving the lower lip flapping against the upper teeth.
Okay.
But it took decades of argument to get it officially onto the chart.
So while technology is moving at light speed, the code we use is moving at the speed of a committee meeting.
And there's a deeper theoretical issue, too. The IPA assumes speech is like beads on a string. One bead, then the next. PAT. But we know that's not true. Speech is a continuous stream where sounds bleed into each other. The IPA is an idealization, not reality.
Okay, so the IPA is the map. But to see the actual terrain, we need better tools. And this is where we move into the second part of our stack, the software revolution.
This is where we stop relying on our ears and start using our eyes.
The reading contrasts the old world with the new world here. Back in the 1940s, they had the spectrograph. Describe this beast.
The spectrograph was massive. A room-sized machine, effectively. It used burning stylus paper and magnetic tape. You could record maybe 2.4 seconds of audio at a time.
2 seconds? You can't even order a coffee in 2 seconds.
And it took minutes just to generate the image. But for the first time in history, you could see the sound waves, you could measure the frequencies. It was the birth of acoustic phonetics.
Fast forward to today, and we have Praat. Now, I downloaded this just to play around with it. It looks like Windows 95, but apparently it runs the entire field of linguistics.
It really does. It was created by Paul Boersma and David Weenink at the University of Amsterdam. Praat literally just means talk in Dutch. It's free, it's open source, and it is the Swiss Army knife of phonetics.
When you open it, you get this visual called a spectrogram. For someone listening who hasn't seen one, how do you even describe it?
Imagine a musical score, but instead of notes, you have a heat map. Time runs from left to right. Frequency so, low pitch to high pitch runs from bottom to top. And the darkness of the ink, or the color, tells you how loud that frequency is.
So a deep voice would have these dark clouds at the bottom, and a high whistle would be a streak way up at the top.
Exactly. And importantly, you can see the formants. These are resonance bands. When you move your tongue to make a vowel, you're changing the shape of the echo chamber in your mouth. That emphasizes certain frequencies.
Okay.
On a spectrogram, those show up as thick, dark bands. We can read them like a fingerprint to tell exactly what vowel you said, even without listening to the audio.
The source gave a great example of this visualization using the phrase, 3 red bags.
Right. They were demonstrating intonation. In the visual, you can see the pitch line, the fundamental frequencies swooping up at the end of the sentence.
That's the high-rising terminal, right, looking like a question when it's a statement.
The Australian question intonation, yes. You can argue about whether someone sounds unsure or if they're just being polite, but Praat doesn't argue. It just shows you the line going up by 50 hertz. It makes the subjective objective.
But Praat is mostly for looking at one file at a time. The research emphasizes another tool for when things get really big. EMU.
EMU is for big data. If you want to analyze, say, 10 hours of speech or 1,000 speakers, you can't click through them one by one in Praat. EMU allows you to treat speech as a database.
And it uses this concept of hierarchical annotation. Break that down for us, because that sounds like jargon.
It just means you can link different levels of reality. You can tell the computer, take this specific millisecond of audio, link it to the phone K, link that K to the word cat, and link that word to the speaker John.
Why is that linkage so important?
Because it lets you ask really complex questions. The source mentions a fascinating study on twins. Researchers wanted to know, do identical twins actually sound identical?
My assumption would be yes. Same DNA, same vocal cords, usually raised in the same house.
You would think. But using EMU, they analyzed thousands of instances of specific sounds, and they found that one twin consistently pronounced the K sound as a fricative like a hissy sound in certain contexts. The other twin didn't.
And you would never catch that just listening to them chat.
You might catch a vibe that they sound a bit different, or maybe you can tell them apart, but you don't know why. EMU allowed them to pull up every single K sound instantly and prove statistically that this wasn't a one-off error. It was a consistent individual sonic fingerprint distinct from his twin.
That's incredible. It basically proves that while biology is a huge factor, our individual speech patterns are uniquely our own, right down to the millisecond.
Precisely.
Okay, so we've got the code, the IPA, and we've got the acoustic analysis with Praat and EMU, but both of those are looking at the result of speech. Section 3 of our dive goes to the source. Inside the mouth.
Articulatory phonetics. That's where it gets messy. Literally.
I laughed out loud at the old school method described here. Direct palatography.
It was. Rudimentary. If you wanted to know where the tongue touched the roof of the mouth in, say, 1910, you would mix olive oil and charcoal powder.
A salad dressing from hell.
You paint the speaker's tongue with it. Then you tell them to say exactly one word. Immediately after, you shove a mirror into their mouth and take a photo of the roof of the mouth to see where the charcoal transferred.
Talk about high pressure. If you swallow or close your mouth or say, you ruin the whole thing.
And it's static. It only tells you the final destination of the tongue. It tells you nothing about the journey, how it got there, or how long it stayed.
So how do we do it now? We aren't still painting tongues, are we? Please tell me we're not.
Thankfully, no. We use EPG, electropalatography.
Which is basically a smart retainer.
Correct. You build a custom artificial palate for the speaker, and it's embedded with dozens of tiny electronic sensors. It's wired to a computer. When the tongue touches a sensor, it just lights up on the screen.
And this is in real time.
Every 5 to 10 milliseconds. It creates a dynamic movie of tongue contact.
The application for this that really moved me was in speech therapy.
It's a game changer. Imagine a child who cannot pronounce the S sound. You can tell them, put your tongue behind your teeth. But they can't see their own tongue. They don't know what that feels like.
So with EPG?
They wear the palette. They look at a screen. They see a target pattern, what an S should look like. Then they see their own tongue's pattern in real time. They just have to play a video game. Move your tongue until your blob matches the target blob.
It turns an invisible struggle into a visible puzzle?
Precisely. It provides biofeedback for a hidden process.
And researchers are also using this to understand how different languages work mechanically. There's a study on Warlpiri, an indigenous Australian language.
This was a fascinating use of EPG. They wanted to study co-articulation.
That's the blurring of sounds we mentioned earlier.
Right. In English, if I say shoe, my lips are already rounding for the oo before I even finish the sh. We overlap our movements. We're lazy, efficient speakers.
And Warlpiri speakers.
The EPG data show they have much less overlap. They're incredibly precise.
Why the difference? Is it a cultural thing?
It's functional. Warlpiri has many sounds that are made in almost the exact same spot in the mouth, these really complex place of articulation contrasts. If they blurred their sounds like English speakers do, the words would become indistinguishable.
So they have to be precise to be understood.
They have to be. EPG allowed us to see that mechanical difference that the ear might miss.
It really highlights how language shapes the body, not just the mind. We literally move our muscles differently based on the grammar we grew up with.
Absolutely.
So we have this incredible toolkit. But what happens when we take these tools out of the lab and into the messy real world? The final section of our reading covers 2 case studies that I found absolutely gripping.
Real-world application is the ultimate test, isn't it?
Case Study A, the Melbourne merger. This sounds like a corporate acquisition, but it's actually about how people talk in Victoria, Australia.
It's a sound change happening right now, in real time. Younger speakers in Melbourne are starting to pronounce L sounds as all sounds before certain consonants.
So the word pillow sounds like palo.
It's more like celery, sounding like salary, or weller, sounding like waller.
I've heard this. I always just thought it was a lazy pronunciation. But the deep dive argues there's a specific mechanism at work here called listener hypocorrection.
This is a theory by the linguist John Ohala. It's brilliant. Okay, so imagine you're listening to someone speak. You hear a word like milk. In Australian English, that L is very dark. It's made way back in the throat.
Okay.
That dark L has a side effect. It naturally drags the vowel before it down. It makes an I sound more like an is or an A.
So acoustically, the physics of the mouth make the vowel sound weird?
Yes. Now, a smart listener unconsciously knows this. Your brain says, oh, that vowel sounds low, but that's just because the dark L is next to it. I'll mentally correct for that and hear the intended vowel.
That's correction. So what's hypocorrection?
Hypocorrection is when you fail to blame the L. You hear the lowered vowel and you think, oh, they just said a different vowel. You take the sound at face value. And then, and this is the key, you start pronouncing it that way yourself.
So it's a failure of the listener to filter out the mechanical noise.
Exactly. And using Praat and EMU, researchers could map this. They found distinct groups. Some people have fully merged the sounds. Others are halfway there. They lower the vowel but still keep it distinct. It proves that language change isn't random. It's driven by these tiny microscopic errors in perception.
That is mind-bending. We change language because we mishear it.
We fail to correct for the context, and that becomes the new norm.
Okay, case study B. This is the one that felt like an episode of CSI, Forensic Speaker Comparison.
This is where the stakes are, life and liberty.
The scenario. Police have an interview with the suspect. They also have a recording of a hoax distress call made from a public phone box. They need to know, is the suspect the guy who made the hoax call?
To the naked ear, the police thought, yes, these sound like the same guy. Both voices sounded unusually high-pitched for a male.
But sounds high-pitched doesn't hold up in court. You need data. So they fired up the acoustic analysis. What did the numbers say?
They measured the fundamental frequency, the pitch. The average Australian male speaks at about 105 hertz.
Okay, that's our baseline.
The suspect in the police interview was speaking at 126 hertz, high. The hoax caller, 148 hertz, very high.
So both are way above average. That seems like a smoking gun. Both are outliers, therefore it's the same guy.
And that is the trap. That is what a prosecutor might want to say, but a forensic phonetician has to be much, much more careful.
Why? Because the numbers are different. 1 in 26 is not 148.
Well, the numbers are different, but the conditions explain that. The suspect was in a police interview. Stressful. Stress raises pitch. But the hoax caller was in a phone box.
And phone boxes are noisy.
Right. And when humans speak in noise, we involuntarily get louder and higher pitched. It's called the Lombard effect. You do it at a bar without even thinking about it. Plus, old telephone lines, they cut out low frequencies, making voices sound thinner and higher.
So the expert couldn't just say guilty.
No. They used statistical modeling box plots and histograms via EMU to show the probability distributions. Sure. And the conclusion was cautious. The data supported the view that it could be the same person because both were distinctively high-pitched outliers. But you cannot rule out that it was just two different men with high voices reacting to stress.
Pitch is not a fingerprint.
It is not. It varies way too much based on mood, health, environment. This case really shows the power of the tools. We can measure things we never could before, but also the danger of overinterpreting them.
It's a humbling conclusion. We have all this text spectrograms, EPG, digital algorithms, but the answer isn't always a binary yes or no.
Science rarely is. We've moved from the 19th century to there. Here is the statistical probability of the 21st. It's better, but it's not magic.
So let's wrap this up. We've journeyed from the analog world of the IPA chart to the digital revolution of Praat and EMU, and finally to the physical tracking of EPG.
The big picture shift is clear. We've stopped simply describing how we think a word sounds. We're now mathematically analyzing how it actually sounds and physically monitoring how it's produced.
We've built some pretty impressive ghost hunting gear.
We have. But I want to leave you with one final thought. Think back to that Melbourne merger and the idea of hypocorrection.
The idea that we change language because we fail to correct for what we hear?
Yes. It implies that errors in listening are actually the engine of language evolution. If humans had perfect perception, if we always heard exactly what was intended and filtered out all the noise perfectly, language might never change. We would sound exactly like our ancestors from 5,000 years ago.
So our flaws are actually the feature.
Misunderstanding is the mother of invention.
That is a thought that is going to stick with me. Misunderstanding is the mother of invention. Thank you so much for walking us through this stack today.
It was a pleasure.
And thank you for listening to this deep dive. We will catch you on the next one.